4:37. The Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz. A radar operator aboard the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln detects an anomalous tactical picture. Instead of the usual traffic, the screens are suddenly flooded with thousands of rapidly approaching targets. The operator broadcasts the brevity code for a massive inbound anti-ship threat over the tactical net. Vampire. Vampire. General quarters is immediately sounded in the Combat Direction Center as tactical officers scramble to assess the situation. The southern horizon is blacked out by a swarm of 4,000 unmanned aerial vehicles. They were launched in synchronized waves from camouflaged positions along Iran's western coastline. The swarm's target is the flagship of the US Fifth Fleet, and the countdown to impact is already ticking. The deployment of 4,000 drones represents a fundamentally new paradigm in naval warfare. This is neither a classic airstrike nor a traditional missile barrage. This tactic is not based on precision strikes, but on the absolute saturation of air defense systems. Iranian specialists have spent years studying the operational algorithms of American naval task forces in the Strait. They have meticulously catalogued radar operating frequencies, engagement envelopes, and the reload cycles of surface-to-air missile systems. The strategy relies on brutal, unforgiving mathematics. The Aegis combat system, protecting the USS Abraham Lincoln, is capable of simultaneously tracking and engaging roughly 150 targets. A volley of 4,000 drones exceeds this hard limit by more than 26 times. At 4:38, the first echelon crosses the Iranian coastline. These are Ababil series loitering munitions, each carrying a payload of 30 to 90 pounds of high explosives. They are flying at altitudes between 50 and 300 feet, skimming the surface of the water to minimize their radar cross-section. The cruising speed of the drones is approximately 170 knots. At this speed, the strike group has less than 19 minutes to organize a multi-layered defense. The commander of the USS Abraham Lincoln, Captain Raymond Holt, arrives on the bridge in under 90 seconds. The tactical picture on the main display shows the swarm dividing into 4 distinct echelons. The first echelon, consisting of about 800 units, is spread across a 60-mile front. The second echelon of 1,200 drones is flying slightly higher, with an estimated time on target 90 seconds behind the first wave. The third echelon, also numbering 1,200 units, is carrying electronic warfare payloads, noise jammers, and radar reflectors. Their primary mission is to jam and degrade the strike group's SPY-6 radars. The fourth echelon of 800 drones is held in reserve, loitering at a significant standoff distance. They are programmed to attack only after the carrier's defensive magazines run dry. The Air Wing Commander orders an emergency scramble of all available aircraft. 4F, A-18E. Super Hornets are catapulted off the deck within 6 minutes. They push toward the intercept vector on full afterburner, carrying a full combat load of AIM, 9X Sidewinder and AIM 120 AMRAAM missiles. However, the problem of critical economic asymmetry instantly rears its head. A single Sidewinder missile costs around $400,000, while an AMRAAM comes in at over $1 million. The 4 fighters carry a combined total of 40 air-to-air missiles against thousands of inbound targets. Meanwhile, the production cost of a single Ababil strike drone is estimated at just $20,000 to $50,000. Expending $40 million worth of ordnance to destroy $2 million worth of drones does not solve the tactical problem. It is a textbook example of asymmetric warfare, a dirt-cheap offensive weapon hurled against a billion-dollar shield. The Super Hornets engage at maximum standoff range. The radar-guided AMRAAMs successfully obliterate the leading drones of the swarm. The pilots switch to short-range Sidewinders, picking off targets that have drifted from the main formation. But their magazines are completely emptied in under 4 minutes. 40 missiles expended, 40 drones destroyed, and 3,960 bogies remain in the air. The fighters are forced to break off the attack and return to the carrier to rearm. The naval surface-to-air defense grids now take the fight. The Aegis combat system processes the telemetry, prioritizing and distributing targets at the absolute limit of its computing power. The escort destroyers USS Fitzgerald and USS Sterett begin rippling SM-2 interceptor missiles out of their vertical launch cells. Each one of these interceptors carries a price tag of roughly $2.1 million. The missiles successfully intercept the drones at a range of 40 to 60 nautical miles with a 92% kill probability. But the core issue is magazine depth. The destroyers boast 96 vertical launch cells each, but a significant portion of those are loaded with Tomahawk strike weapons and anti-submarine rockets. The actual inventory of SM-2 interceptors dedicated to air defense sits at around 60 units per ship. 120 missiles are fired, splashing 120 targets, at a total cost of over $250 million. The number of inbound Kamikaze drones still exceeds 3,700 units. At 4:49, the second echelon of drones enters the intercept envelope. Aegis is now simultaneously tracking over 2,000 incoming tracks. The SPY-6 radar arrays are radiating at maximum power, painting the airspace in microsecond intervals. This unprecedented density of radar contacts begins to induce micro-stutters in the data processing algorithms. The close-in weapon systems are brought online. The USS Abraham Lincoln spins up its two Phalanx CIWS mounts, armed with two 0mm rotary cannons. They open fire at a rate of 4,500 rounds per minute, engaging targets that have breached the 2-mile perimeter. The dense wall of tungsten armor-piercing rounds shreds the incoming drones in mid-air. But the drum capacity of a single Phalanx mount is limited to 1,500 rounds, giving it exactly 20 seconds of sustained trigger time. After that, it requires a manual reload, a luxury of time they do not have in this chaotic battle space. The escort destroyers unleash their Rolling Airframe Missile, or RAM, point defense systems. The launcher aboard the USS Sterett empties all 21 missiles with devastating accuracy. Yet these localized tactical victories do absolutely nothing to blunt the sheer mass of the swarm. At 4:53, the third echelon enters the engagement zone, radically shifting the tactical reality. 700 drones are equipped with broadband noise jammers that flood the electromagnetic spectrum with static. Another 500 carry corner reflectors and Lundberg lenses, projecting massive ghost radar signatures. On the displays of the cutting-edge SPY-6 radars, the 4,000 physical targets instantly multiply into 10,000 phantom tracks. The combat system algorithms begin to choke, struggling to separate kinetic threats from electronic decoys. Intercept efficiency plummets, and multi-million-dollar missiles are baited into chasing ghosts. 3 of the carrier's 4 communication bands are subjected to aggressive jamming. The Link 16 tactical data network suffers a packet loss exceeding 40%. Comms with 5th Fleet Command in Bahrain become heavily fragmented and unstable. Under these extreme conditions, Captain Holt makes a hard, aggressive tactical call. He orders the helmsman to drive the carrier directly into the teeth of the swarm at a flank speed of 32 knots. Rapidly closing the distance drastically cuts the reaction time the drones need to maneuver into attack vectors. It forces the engagement into a knife fight range, where the ship's last-ditch kinetic defenses can be brought to bear. The USS Abraham Lincoln angles its heavily armored flight deck toward the threat axis, minimizing its vulnerable cross-section. Out on the catwalks, sailors man the manual twin, 50-caliber machine guns, and the 2 5mm Mark 38 chain guns. They lay down a blistering wall of manual suppressive fire into the incoming wave of suicide drones. The sheer volume of lead pouring from the 100,000-ton warship rips dozens of drones out of the sky on approach. But at 4:57, the first drone breaks through. It impacts the portside antenna array, shattering the radar housing and blinding 25% of the ship's coverage in that sector. 12 seconds later, a second drone slams into aircraft elevator number 2, sparking a massive fuel fire on the hangar deck. Damage control parties instantly rush to fight the blaze, but thick black smoke rolls over the flight deck, blinding the gun crews. Between 4:57 and 5:04, the carrier and its escorts absorb 17 more direct hits. The USS Fitzgerald takes 4 strikes to the superstructure, losing her forward CIWS mount and a primary comms mast. The USS Sterett eats 3 hits. One punches right through the hull plating near the waterline, triggering severe compartment flooding. The USS Abraham Lincoln absorbs 11 direct hits. The flight deck is cratered, 2 parked aircraft are completely destroyed, and the island is peppered with shrapnel. Despite the brutal damage, the nuclear reactors continue to run perfectly. The ship maintains her flank speed and maneuverability. At 5:06, the reserve 4th echelon commits to the attack. 800 high-speed loitering munitions, waiting patiently at the edge of radar range, suddenly throttle up. They are armed with shaped charge warheads designed to punch through armor plating and detonate deep inside the ship's bowels. Their onboard AI has actively analyzed the telemetry from the previous waves, identifying the newly created blind spots in the defense net. The swarm hooks around and dives in through the portside blind spot caused by the shattered radar array. The surviving sensors pick up the incoming threat at 14 miles. Time to impact is 4 minutes and 40 seconds. The magazines for both the long-range interceptors and point defense missiles are completely dry. All that remains is a single operational phalanx CIWS with 20 seconds of ammo against 800 inbound killers. The captain issues a desperate order to flush every surviving aircraft off the deck. 12 Seahawk helicopters and 6 Farads per ampere. 1 8E Super Hornets launch blindly through the smoke in the middle of a raging firefight. The MH-60 Seahawk crews use their door guns and the massive downwash from their rotors to physically destabilize and crash the lightweight drones. The Super Hornets execute extreme low-altitude passes, using their violent jet wake and wingtip vortices to tear the swarm formation apart. The intense thermal output from their afterburners literally melts the optics and fries the circuitry of dozens of drones caught in their exhaust. By 5:14, the sheer chaos of the aerial maneuvers has reduced the 4th echelon from 800 down to 312 units. The final phalanx mount rips through its last drum of ammo, while the exhausted gun crews on the catwalks burn through their final belts of 50 calories. The carrier continues to absorb impacts every 15 to 20 seconds, but the damage control teams heroically contain the primary fires. At 5:19, the very last drone in the swarm runs completely out of fuel and ditches into the sea just off the carrier's bow. For the first time in 42 minutes, the radar scopes are finally clear of hostile tracks. The butcher's bill for the strike group is severe. The USS Abraham Lincoln sustained 31 direct hits, suffered significant casualties among the crew, and lost multiple multi-million-dollar aircraft. The escort ships USS Fitzgerald and USS Sterett took a combined 11 hits, also sustaining dead and wounded sailors. The cost of the expended American ordnance exceeded $600 million. Conversely, the production and launch of the entire Iranian drone swarm is estimated at a mere $120 million. The economic exchange ratio is a brutal 5-to-1, even though the supercarrier remains afloat. This engagement forces military analysts to confront terrifying questions about the future of naval warfare. Intelligence indicates that adversarial production lines are capable of churning out up to 15,000 of these loitering munitions annually. The scale of future attacks could be exponentially larger, with the drones themselves becoming faster, smarter, and fully autonomous. The decades-old doctrine of carrier strike group invulnerability is undergoing a massive, agonizing review. The mass deployment of dirt-cheap autonomous systems has proven perfectly capable of saturating top-tier air defenses and inflicting critical damage on billion-dollar capital ships. Military strategists at the Pentagon are now analyzing this telemetry in real time. This incident has definitively proven that the marriage of low-cost technology and swarm saturation tactics has completely rewritten the rules of combat at sea. Any nation-state with a coastline and a basic industrial base now possesses the capability to effectively cripple a major naval armada. A strategy built purely on the quantitative overmatch of autonomous systems has officially launched a new, terrifying era of naval doctrine. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on modern military tactics and the future of asymmetric warfare, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments how you think the US Navy should counter the drone swarm threat.